Hi, Steve.
How you doing?
All summer long, you've been waiting for a specific veteran to decide what he's going to do. What's your latest inkling? I mean, obviously, he says he's going to announce it on his podcast, but what's your inkling?
I'm just hopeful. Yeah. Beyond that, I really don't know. You know what Andre's going to do. He's been in here working out and kind of getting training staff to work with him and look at him, and I think he's getting a feel for what he wants to do. And we told him from the beginning, take as long as you want, and so he's taking his time, and that's fine. So we'll see.
Is there any injury concerns heading into camp? Do you basically expect everyone ready for practice day one?
Yeah. We're expecting everybody to be ready to go, but we will, take precautionary measures for anybody, especially our veteran guys. If there's anything, especially early in camp, we want to make sure we ramp them up at the right pace, and we'll get a good feel for that the first day or two.
No, I guess restrictions for like Wiseman, Rollins, Baldwin,
Nope.
None of those guys, right?
Nope.
More than a few times now. Why is this one different than the past ones, especially for
Yeah, I think what makes this one different is just the prevalence of youth on our roster. After you get past our first six, plus Dante and Jamichael, you're really looking at a young group, basically first and second year guys, which is exciting, but also, daunting, because you don't just show up in this league and win. I mean, it took Steph Curry and Clay, took those guys, a few years to really learn how to win. They would be the first to tell you that. So I think our young guys have a lot to learn, but they're all very talented. And so it's an interesting mix of veteran and youth that we're excited about, but we're also conscious that it's not going to be smooth sailing all the time. There's going to be a learning curve for sure.
some of those young guys are already champions?
Yeah.
There's still a lot to learn. I know that we've all been to the mountaintop, but also you got to keep with the progression and the plan that we have, regardless of if we win the championship.
Yeah, I mean, I think players are all very aware that they within the team goal of winning a championship, there's the individual career path, and it's something that we try to really harp on. That the more that you do for the team, the more the game rewards you. It's not an easy lesson to learn as a young guy, especially if you're not playing a whole lot. It's a little bit of a paradox too. People get paid in this league for playing a lot of minutes and scoring a lot of points. So it's difficult as a young player to have to process all of that, commit every day, learn how to be a pro, learn what makes a winning player, because it's not like you just read it in a book and figure it out. You got to experience it. So that's the process that will be very interesting. But there's no doubt that the experience of last year, going through the playoffs, getting some playing time for Jonathan and Moses, feeling it on the court, but also observing the whole process of getting through the journey. So it will all be very helpful.
I think Jamma told me after Summer League, by middle August, heading into training camp, that's when you guys would hope to see more of what James really does need to improve on and focus on heading into camp. So what are those things?
Well, the number one thing over the summer was getting healthy, and he's healthy. He's played in a ton of pickup games in our building, with other young guys, and just playing and getting healthy, being with the training staff. It's perfect. That's what he needed to do. I think he's got a lot of confidence in that knee now. So that was the first step. And then the next step is just finding his role within this team. When he was a rookie 2 years ago, we were decimated by injury. We threw him into the deep end, and he had some great nights and he had some tough nights. And this year we'll be fitting him into a championship team, so it's a different role for him, and we'll have, I think, a more concise vision of what he needs to do, which is run the floor, defend, be that lob threat in our pick and roll game, and rebound. So it's exciting, and it's a good next step for James.
Steve, how much does the Japan trip change the ramp up as far as just having a couple of practices and then you leave and then you come back and then the season's upon you? And obviously part of going to Japan is the league wants to see the stars play over there.
Yeah.
So how do you just kind of manage all of that?
Yeah, it's very different. I mean, we went to China 4 years ago for preseason. It really changes up what you're doing in camp and how you structure it. We've got to get ready for 2 games after basically 3 practices. So I think what you'll see in Tokyo is all 20 guys, I think, are going. Everybody's going to play. Nobody's going to play heavy minutes, especially our vets, because it's not safe to do that. So this is it's going to be a great trip. It'll be great for bonding. It'll be wonderful in terms of promoting the NBA and promoting our team in a part of the world that is basketball crazy. We're excited to play in front of the Japanese fans, and what it really means is we just have to change the structure of our camp. And when we return from Tokyo, that's when we'll have a really good week of practice to start implementing some things and kind of get to the nuts and bolts of what we want to do this year.
Is it almost like two different camps in a way?
Yeah, I mean, 3 days does not constitute a camp, so three practices and then a trip to Tokyo is totally different. So we'll use those 2 games as part of our preparation, obviously, but you just adapt, and it's it's fine. It's just different.
Steve, I think you said that you liked the work that Jonathan Kuminga put in the offseason. What exactly were you hoping to see from him specifically work on in the offseason?
Well, with Jonathan, it's similar to James in that you're talking about a really talented young player without a ton of experience. So there are specific things that we want from him: running the floor, rebounding, becoming a great defensive player, being able to utilize his physical size and strength and athleticism. But some of that just means playing a lot and figuring out the game, figuring out the NBA game, seeing the advantages, seeing when to attack, when not to attack. Most of that comes with experience, so he just needs to continue on the path he's been on, and I think he'll be in good shape.
Steve, you mentioned earlier the difference between, last time you guys were defending titles and now with the youth movement. During that run of 5 straight, for the most part, you guys were viewed as overwhelming favorites. We know, obviously, you got to go and show up. How do you view this team, obviously, knowing what you did last year, but knowing you guys have some youth and just the rest of the NBA and who else is in the conference, in the league, heading into camp? What do you see for this team, and how do you feel like you're viewed going into the year?
Well, I think last year we were hoping to be in the mix, and we thought we would, but we weren't sure. But obviously winning the title and returning, our top 6 guys, we feel really good about being in the mix now. We're back in it, but there's a lot of teams that are right in it, and the league is super competitive. I think the West has gotten even stronger. There's a lot of competition out there, and so we're one of the teams that is in the mix, and that's exciting. But we got to start over. It doesn't just automatically happen from one year to the next. So we got a lot of work.
What have you thought about Moses Moody and Jordan Poole's offseason, and what are kind of your expectations for them heading into
Moses
camp?
and
Poole
and Jordan? Well, Jordan really established himself last year, as a really good NBA player. So for him, it's now about getting better defensively, more consistent defensively. to become, a two-way guy night in and night out. For Moses, it's about taking the next step and earning a spot in the rotation. Last year, he was on the fringe, and as a rookie, that's usually, how it works. But Moses has a great shot right now to really take a spot in the rotation and make himself a really big part of this year's team.
You had very flexible starting lineups in the playoffs throughout. Kind of re-enter the season, especially after the finals, with what seems like a pretty secure starting five. Jordan, I guess, sixth man. I mean, is that how you're viewing it? Like, you have your starting five, Jordan is your best bench player, or can you see in certain matchups Jordan starting, you're going small, that type of thing?
I mean, I think the only way I'm looking at it right now is that our top six are really clear, but like last year, there will undoubtedly be injuries and things are going to happen, and our lineup will change based on circumstance. But those six guys are going to play a ton. It's too hard to say right now, are we going to start the exact same way every single game? We got to see how it all shakes out. But I think what's really more of the story is what happens after those six. We know those guys are all going to play a ton. But what happens from there, to me, it's wide open. We got JaMychal and Dante, who have been, a big part of rotations for great teams in this league. I have a lot of faith that they'll be able to come in and contribute at a high level. We got all these young guys fighting for spots, so I'm excited about the competition that's ahead.
Steve, does your mentality or approach to the regular season change at all this year as opposed to maybe a year ago?
Maybe a little bit based on the circumstances. I mentioned that last year we really felt it was important to establish ourselves right away, and we got off to that quick start, 18-2, I think. We needed our vets to play together and develop that chemistry. I think, in the end, we won 53 games, started out strong and kind of, had that lull late in the regular season. You never know how this stuff is going to shake out, but I think we have more confidence in our ability to compete at the highest level going into this season. And the season may take on a slightly different shape in terms of the momentum and the energy and everything else. So we got to navigate that as it comes.
And you have, a good number of guys in quote unquote contract years. Is that? Do you like that? Do you think that can be a benefit for you guys in some ways, or how do you view that?
It just varies. Some guys play better when they're when their contract is up. Some guys stress out about it. Sometimes somebody will sign a long-term deal and be thrilled and settle down and relax, and other guys will sign a long-term deal and feel pressure to, match the contract they've been given. Everybody is different. So I don't really worry too much about that before, the season starts. I try to get a good feel for what every player is going through and help them through their own set of circumstances.
Steve, every NBA offseason comes with drama, and this week we've seen a lot of drama with two top teams that are contenders. I'm just wondering if you can draw a correlation throughout your career, but specifically with the Warriors, between the stability of leadership and success on the court.
Yeah, I think organizational stability is a huge factor in pro sports, but I think especially in the NBA, especially today because of the player movement. I think one of the great strengths of our team is our continuity, for sure within the roster, with our core guys who have won titles together, but also with ownership and management. And, this will be my 9th year. We have a really stable, solid organization, a very successful one. We work together well. And when you throw all that together with this talented core, there's kind of a lot of institutional knowledge that allows you to kind of push forward quicker than if everybody's brand new. You know, a new coach has to install a new system, get to know each other. New GM is going to put in a different structure. All that stuff matters. So to have that continuity that we have, that's, you know, really a decade long when you think about the players, Steph, Clay, Draymond, Andre, Bob, Joe. Those guys have been together for a decade, and I'm, you know, just behind that by a couple of years. So we really look at that as one of our advantages.
And how rare
It is rare. You know, we're in a sweet spot. We know that. Those sweet spots, if you look historically in the NBA, they always come with special talent. You know, as a coach, you don't stay anywhere unless you've got special talent. Jerry Sloan, Stockton Malone, you know, Pop, Tim Duncan, Ginobili, Parker, David Robinson, you know, Phil Jackson, you know, the Chicago days, the Laker days, like there's always special talent at the core of any extended run. And I think you also need really strong management and ownership, and we've had that. So it's nothing that we can take for granted. We have to keep working, but we do view it as an advantage.
Steve, with your three vets, Steph, Clay, and Draymond, usually you keep those guys in the mid-30s, so to speak, for games, minutes-wise. Has there been any consideration yet to shaving off 2 or 3 minutes per game in the regular season, or do you want to keep them around the same as you have for the last few years?
Well, I will see how it goes, Monty. I think, you know, early in this run, they were all like around 32, which we were able to do because we were very talented and we were able to win a lot of games where we could rest guys in the fourth quarter. We didn't have that luxury last year, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, Steph's minutes went up by a couple minutes. I think all that stuff matters. It'd be great if we could limit some minutes and be able to have guys really ready and physically in a great place going into the playoffs. But you got to get there, and every season's different, and you have to read it as it goes. So we'll see.
Hey, Steve, how important was it getting a free agent like JaMychal, someone who came in and said that he's here to do all the little things, set the screens, fight for loose balls, et cetera?
Thrilled to have JaMychal. You know, I thought Otto Porter and Belly last year were such important pieces to our team, veteran players who just knew how to play the game, good shooters, smart screeners, rebounders, and that's how I view JaMychal. He's really an accomplished player. And especially given all the youth on our team coming off the bench, I viewed JaMychal as just a critical addition to our team. So really excited to have him.
There's some staff changes, you know, you're going through some coaching staff changes. Do you expect that to be pretty smooth process, or is it going to take some time to work out responsibilities and just everything like that?
No, responsibilities are pretty clear. It should be pretty smooth, given that we promoted from within. We just changed some roles a little bit, but we still have the chemistry, you know, that we had a year ago. We'll miss Mike for sure. I mean, Mike was a huge part of our success and our defensive work a year ago, but also just our personality as a team. You know, he took on a lot of leadership for us and great relationship with our players. But there's a reason we promoted from within. We feel really, really good about the guys who are moving up the ladder, and we feel good about, you know, the individual responsibilities as well. So I'm excited about the staff.
Hey, Steve. From a wider lens standpoint, obviously you guys played Boston in the finals, and they played a couple bigs a lot of the time. Minnesota traded for Rudy this summer. They're going to play him and Carl together. We've sort of seen, you know, Cleveland's playing two bigs. You guys obviously were right at the forefront of sort of going the other way and playing small. What has been your thought on some of these other teams around the league going that direction? And, you know, what do you think sort of the pluses and minuses of it are?
I like it. I like when teams, you know, zig when everybody else is zagging. I think it's smart. I think our advantage has always been Draymond Green. He gives us the flexibility to play big or small. And sometimes we accomplish the small part, even playing big, because he's so smart. And I think Loon has now entered that conversation too. You think back to the finals, we played Loon and Draymond together a lot. And what we lost in terms of spacing, we more than made up for in terms of intelligence, hidden handbacks, screening. We were able to generate plenty of offense, and then at the other end, put our best defensive lineup on the floor. So we've been lucky just because of our versatility on our roster with multiple guys, but particularly with Draymond. And as other teams, play bigger or really stretch you out and go smaller, we always feel like we can adapt either way because of Draymond mainly. But like I said, I think Loon is part of that too. Not to mention Wiggs, who can guard multiple spots, Klay Thompson. So we've been blessed to have a great flexible roster.
What do you think James missed specifically by missing 2 training camps? He missed both of his camps. And what do you think he'll gain just in this next 2-week period where you guys are installing and everything that comes with training camp?
I think, what James missed between, 2 training camps and 2 summer leagues too, is just, all the foundational stuff that young players need. This is not 30 years ago where, Patrick Ewing plays 4 years, at Georgetown, or Tim Duncan plays 4 years at Wake Forest, and you're getting these big guys who are, ready to roll right away. And in a case like James, you got 3 college games and 0 training camps, 0 summer leagues. So now comes the foundational stuff. And so his work ethic is fantastic. His approach, his attitude, he's beloved by his teammates. They're seeing how hard he works. So now it's a matter of experience. He just has to keep playing, and we've got to continue to be patient and allow that development to happen at an organic, natural rate.
Steve, the question always been for years: how long Steph Prime going to last? Who can don't know? It depends. But practically, just watching what he did in the playoffs and watching that he was at his best at the end of the playoffs of a long run, does that alter your view, or do you think, okay, this really could go on for 3-4 more years, and maybe when most of us are thinking 1-2 at the most?
Right. I think with Steph, you have to factor in a lot more besides just the age. You can't just look at his age and go, well, he's only got a year left or 2 years left, because that's traditionally, when players start to fade or whatever. I think of Steve Nash a lot when I think of Steph. I watched Steve in Phoenix play at a really high level till 40. John Stockton did the same thing in Utah. You're talking about athletes who are ferociously committed to their craft, to their body, to their conditioning, every single aspect of Steph's day. He's devoted to being at the top of his game for as long as he can. And you're talking about one of the best athletes in the world. Maybe not by how high you jump or how fast you are, traditional athletic standpoint, but when you talk about hand-eye and balance and core strength, Steph's one of the greatest athletes on earth. And so all that stuff matters. His ability to keep himself at such a high level, it's not an accident. He's both really, kind of gifted naturally, but also totally committed. And I fully expect him to have a lot more great years.
Steve, I know you've addressed the Sarver situation. I'm just wondering, there's ownership in sports, all sorts of sports where stuff like this happens and nothing changes. What is it about the NBA that it isn't tolerated to the point where someone will actually sell a team? This is not the first time this has happened, but it seems unique to the NBA that the players can bring pressure and change the narrative.
Yeah, it's a good point. I hadn't really thought of that dynamic. maybe there haven't been similar situations in football and baseball. I haven't really given it much thought. I think some of it is the age that we're in, you know, the era that we're in. Everything is really laid out. You know, everything is exposed, everything is laid out there, and then everybody is sort of free to play judge and jury, and just here comes the hammer, and it's really difficult to withstand that sort of you know, barrage of whatever, you know, in whatever direction. And we've seen it with happen in a lot of different areas of life, I think, not just sports. So I don't really know that the NBA is different, but I'll have to give that one some more thought.
Similar but different to James. I mean, for the first time in 3 or 4 years, Clay has had a summer where it's not rehab, but it's just having fun on vacation, but also just working back. How big is that going to be for him, both physically and mentally, heading into this year?
Yeah, I mean, he's had a great summer. I think just the peace of mind of, you know, now being back, you know, playing at such a high level, winning a championship, and then getting a summer without having to rehab all the time. He's in a great place mentally, spiritually. He's really happy, and I think I know he'll be in a good place, just emotionally as he comes into camp. But I think our training staff repeatedly has told him and told us over the last year that he'll be better this year than he was, you know, the second half of last year, just because of the nature of the injury and the rehab. So I expect him to have a big year and be more consistent. Thought he showed that he was still himself last year, but it was more sporadic. I think it'll be more consistent this year. That's, I think we're all sort of anticipating that.
Hi, Steve. Kendra
Jane.
kind of had my same question in mind. So as you've reflected on what Clay did come back from over the last couple months of being away, are you still pretty amazed at what he did and to come back after 2.5 years?
Yeah. I mean, he had to overcome so much, not only physically, but the devastation of being taken away from the game for 2 straight years, and really 2.5. I was so impressed with his defense in the finals. You know, that was a kind of an underrated part of that series. Was as the series went on, he got better and better. He got more and more physical. Was able to stay in front of their big guns, and just contribute so much to our defense that he looked like the old Clay to me in that regard, because that's always been maybe what people don't notice as much because he's such a great shooter, but when he's at his best, he's a brilliant two-way player. And so it was so much fun to see him return to that stage and have a lot of fun out there.